On today's episode, I continue my Halloween month by talking about the instant classic thriller, The Sixth Sense.
If you're looking for a man with no plans or programs, and he always needs a chance to hold hands for romance, or you're looking for the Luke with an old man or cold hands, it's a creature of the night who heads for his spotlight. I'm here to welcome you to blinding or random reviews. No, nothing when I choose. It's blinding or random reviews.
All right, everyone. Welcome to Brandon at Random Reviews, covering one unsystematically chosen topic at a time. If you like listening to a guy talk about arbitrarily chosen subjects in weekly episodes, then look no further. To keep up with the newest content, you can find Brandon at Random Reviews on most major video and audio platforms, as well as all popular social media sites. If you enjoy this, please like and subscribe. I use listener engagement as a way to convince my mom the kids at school don't bully me or call me a freak. As I mentioned, today's movie is The Sixth Sense, released on August 6th, 1999, runtime 107 minutes. This movie is rated PG-13 by the Motion Picture Association of America. Budget $40 million. Written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, who also directed Signs, which is a pretty solid movie. I won't say it quite measures up to this one. He also did Unbreakable with Bruce Willis also and Samuel L. Jackson. That one's a pretty interesting follow-up to The Sixth Sense. It's similar in tone, but it's also a very different kind of story in a lot of ways. And then he did notable piece of shit, The Happening, with Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel. And let me just tell you, I saw that movie in theaters and I was so hyped for it. I thought it was going to be so good, and it was such dog shit. I can't even go back and rewatch it. I've only been able to see clips of it, and it's even worse in the clips than I remember it being, which is saying quite a bit. The composer, we have James Newton Howard. He also did the score for The Fugitive, which is a big favorite of mine. I fucking love The Fugitive. He did Primal Fear with Edward Norton in a very early role, and it also stars Richard Gere. And he did Blood Diamond with Leonardo DiCaprio, and that movie is fucking solid. A really underrated gem. My dumb sense of humor thought that was funny. Anyway, so for the cast, we have Bruce Willis, as I mentioned. He plays Dr. Malcolm Crowe, and he was, of course, in Die Hard. That was his breakout action role. That one is really noteworthy as being regarded as one of the greatest action movies ever made, but it was also the first time that Hollywood rolled the dice on casting somebody as basically like an everyman type of person instead of like a jacked out Stallone or Schwarzenegger type to star in an action movie like that, and it paid big dividends. He was also in Pulp Fiction, which is a Quentin Tarantino classic. Fucking love that movie, and honestly, he is really good in it. I really enjoy his part of the story, and it's one of those movies that it's not like it's an ensemble in the sense that like a lot of people share scenes together. There are a lot of people in that movie that don't have any scenes together that are considered major stars or major supporting actors of the movie. And of course, Bruce's rise to fame was in the TV show Moonlighting with Sybil Shepherd. He was good in that, from what I gather. I've never seen a single episode, or even, I think I haven't even seen an actual clip from that show, but that was kind of where he made a name for himself. Then we have Haley Joel Osment, who plays Cole Sear. He was in a movie called AI Artificial Intelligence, which was directed, I believe, by Steven Spielberg. Never seen that one. He was in Forrest Gump, which was a very small part, but I mean, it was 94. He was way young, even younger than The Sixth Sense, obviously. And that's a fucking great movie. I love it. I know a lot of people give it a lot of hate now in retrospect, but I regarded that movie as like top 5, top 10 for my favorite movies of all time for the longest time, and I probably still hold it pretty close to there now. He was also in a movie called Pay It Forward with Kevin Spacey and Helen Hunt. Never saw that one. I've heard mixed things about it. It seems like somebody told me it was a pretty decent movie, but actually I heard later that the reviews were really fucking terrible on it, so I really don't know. I actually own it because I believe I got it for free, so I could watch it any old time, but I'm also not that fucking motivated to see it. Then we have Toni Collette, who plays Lynn Sear, and she was in Little Miss Sunshine. Great fucking movie. Definitely intend to cover that on this podcast at some point. I won't go into it too much, but it's got Steve Carell, Paul Dano, Abigail Breslin, is it Alan Arkin? And Greg Kinnear is also in it. She was in the movie Hereditary, which is a very well regarded, fairly recent horror movie. It is a pretty solid movie. I think maybe I waited too long to watch it after I heard it was good because I kept seeing it in like top 10 lists of like the last however many years of horror movies, and it was good. I don't know that it measured up quite to what I was hoping for. And then she was also in the movie The Way Way Back, which is a personal favorite of mine. I enjoy it quite a bit. It's got Sam Rockwell and it's also got Steve Carell in it. And it's got basically this story about a kid who goes and finds a summer job at a water park while he is away for the summer with his mom and stepdad. And basically, it's just a really interesting, fun story. It's kind of like a coming of age type story that has probably been overdone a bit, but it was still enjoyable. And then we have Olivia Williams, who plays Anna Crow. For casting notes, during the casting process for the role of Cole Sear, Shyamalan had been apprehensive about Osment's video audition, saying later he was this really sweet cherub, kind of beautiful blonde boy. Shyamalan saw the role as darker and more brooding, but admitted that he nailed it with the vulnerability and the need. He was able to convey a need as a human being in a way that was amazing to see. This was actually the first of two movies that Bruce Willis owed Disney Studios after he caused another production, which was called The Broadway Brawler, to be shut down due to him firing the director. He was also paid $10 million, half of his usual salary at the time. M. Night Shyamalan wrote the part with Willis in mind, supposedly. Every time I read that, I'm like, I didn't actually see this in an interview or something. I don't know for sure that this is actually true, but supposedly Shyamalan was like, "Oh, I want Bruce Willis for this, and I'm going to think about him while I'm writing this part." Marissa Tomei and Claire Forlani were considered for the role of Lynn Sear, which ultimately went to Toni Collette. And for those who don't know, Claire Forlani, I know her from the movie Mallrats. She plays, is it Jeremy London or Jason London? I can't remember which. She plays the main character's ex girlfriend. She breaks up with him to start the movie off. And it's really the only thing I can think of that she's been in that I remember seeing. She might have been in other stuff in smaller roles. Can't really remember. And honestly, Marissa Tomei, I have such a crush on Marissa Tomei that if she would have been the mom role in this movie, it would probably be held in even higher regard than it already is for me at this point, just because that would be like the cherry on top of this spectacularly well done movie. Michael Cera auditioned for the role of Cole Sear, and I actually have a little bit more information about that I will share after I'm done talking about the actual plot, because I don't want to try and explain something that I haven't talked about yet and then have to explain it again in the movie. So I'll get back to that. Don't worry. More Michael Cera to come. I know you guys are dying to hear more. For the plot synopsis, after being shot by a resentful former patient whom he failed to help, a Philadelphia child psychologist seeks redemption by treating a young boy with a disturbing secret. Wow, okay. For the tagline, not every gift is a blessing. That's very nice. That's actually well done. I feel like it fits the movie pretty well, but it doesn't give anything away. And it also doesn't say anything like the name of the movie in the tagline. I fucking hate that. So, alright, guys, let's just dive right into the plot of this motherfucking movie. So, I'm going to preface this plot walkthrough by mentioning that I am going to spoil the ending, and I only say that even though I spoil the ending of every movie because I literally walk through the plot in these episodes. I specify that because this is one of those movies that you absolutely do not want to watch if you know what happens at the end, because it will greatly diminish your enjoyment of the movie if you've never seen it and don't know the plot twist already. Honestly, I don't know if I'm surprised that this movie is rated PG-13 or not, because it's not excessively gory or vulgar, but I remember this scaring the shit out of me as a kid. So the opening credits to this movie are appropriately dark with a spooky score playing in the background, but I think I would have formatted them a little better, just like the lettering and just kind of the format of the text. I would have changed a little bit. It's pretty cool how the filaments of a light bulb slowly come into view out of the darkness as the movie really starts after the credits finish. This woman comes down into a cellar to pick out a bottle of wine, and I should tell you this is Anna Crow, played by the one and only Olivia Williams, who I have never seen or remembered from anything else ever. She slips out a bottle from a slot and calmly examines the bottle and holds it weirdly and looks around the cellar a bit. It's very bizarre because it's not at all clear why she's looking around as she gives like a little shudder. It's like it doesn't really come back in any kind of way. I don't know if it's supposed to be foreshadowing something. It's kind of weird. Then she just walks upstairs and arrives back to her husband, Malcolm, who is played by Bruce Willis, who is already holding a glass of wine that is mostly empty almost. They are remarking on how cold it is in their house, and Malcolm is putting on a sweater, and they're talking about a frame that is sitting in front of them without explaining what is in it because, you gotta keep the audience in suspense. We're dying to know what this fucking frame is by the time they actually show it. He asks how much a frame like that one costs, but he phrases it in kind of a weird way, and she mentions that he sounds a little like Dr. Seuss when he's drunk, and it is finally revealed that the frame is actually a plaque with a gold plate that is for an award recognizing Malcolm's accomplishments in child psychiatry, because he also happens to be a child psychiatrist. And I don't want to be a stickler, but a plaque is not a frame because frames go around things, around pictures, usually in this context. But a plaque is just a finished slab of wood, usually with like well designed routed edges and things like that. And usually it has a piece of metal adhered to it in some way with a message inscribed on it. She reads the plaque aloud to him and embarrasses him with the kind words because I guess he's one of those real humble types who sits with his wife and looks at plaques, but draws the line at having them read aloud in front of him, which I get. Malcolm attempts to diminish the significance of the award by suggesting they should hang it in their bathroom, but Anna stands firm and tells him that it is an important night for both of them because he's finally being recognized for his sacrifices and accomplishments. She points out that he has put everything second, including her, for the families he works with, which feels a lot like a very deliberate dig at him, even though she might not mean it that way. It just kind of feels like it's this not so subtle dig. But she kind of doesn't really seem pissy about taking a back seat to his career and is more proud of him than anything, and remarks that he really has a gift with this whole line of work that he's in. They begin kissing, and he does a bit about wanting some more wine, but he says it like a Dr. Seuss rhyme to be funny. They make their way upstairs, and she's stripping off her clothes, and then he drunkenly starts to take off his own clothes. But suddenly, Anna notices that the window is not only open in the bedroom, but there is evidence of a break in, and the phone is off the hook. As the two of them examine the damage to the window and the surrounding area, a shadow unexpectedly moves across the light that is shining on them and startles them, and it clearly belongs to a person or some kind of humanoid beast. So they turn to look in the bathroom where the shadow was cast from, but they can't see anything from where they're standing. As Malcolm slowly approaches the bathroom, he sees a thin white man who has stripped down to his underwear, standing tensely on the rug in there, kind of crossing his arms, but more awkwardly than normal. The man nervously fidgets and is clearly unwell mentally. I mean, I don't like to jump to too many conclusions, but this guy broke into somebody's house and is standing in just his underwear in a bathroom, and I put two and two together, you know what I mean? So Malcolm tells Anna not to move or make a sound, and he addresses the man in the bathroom by telling him what address he is at. He tells him he broke a window and entered a private residence, and the man tells him he doesn't know so many things. And obviously, his voice is very tense and weird sounding. The man doesn't turn to face Malcolm when he talks initially. Malcolm continues on by telling him there are no drugs or needles in their house of any kind. The man begins approaching Malcolm and stands in the doorway as Malcolm backs up and sits back on the bed unintentionally because he's on edge watching this deranged lunatic. It's like he just keeps backing up and he just kind of hits the bed and sits down by default because he wasn't paying attention that he was backing into the bed. The man asks, "Do you know why you're afraid when you're alone?" And he replies to himself, "I do, I do." Anna asks the man what he wants, and the man motions to Malcolm and says, "What he promised me." And he says it repeatedly as he raises his voice in anger. Anna reacts in terror and says, "Oh my God," and Malcolm asks the man if he knows him. Weirdly, the man says, "Don't you know me, hero? Don't you even remember your own patients?" He continues on by saying, "Downtown clinic, single parent family, possible mood disorder." As Malcolm is trying to piece it together who this man is in his head, it's like you can see the gears working. It's like Malcolm's face is like showing that he's trying to remember this person, but he can't. The man says he was afraid, and Malcolm told him he was having trouble coping with his parents' divorce. Malcolm continues looking at him as the man says he was wrong and he doesn't want to be afraid no more. The man is being very loud and is clearly frustrated as Malcolm asks him for a minute to think, and the man tells him that he waited 10 years for Malcolm and he's not giving him anything more. Malcolm tries to guess the man's name and lands on Vincent Gray as Vincent continues his manic episode. Malcolm describes his memory of Vincent and says he was quiet and smart and very compassionate. Vincent points out that Malcolm forgot the word first and angrily yells at Malcolm that Malcolm failed him. Malcolm attempts to apologize for not helping him and asks him to just let him try. Vincent suddenly turns around with a pistol and fires it, striking Malcolm in his midsection. Anna cries out and goes to help Malcolm on the bed. Then the camera cuts back to Vincent and shows him putting the gun to his head, and the camera pans away and the gun is heard firing off screen, and it's clear that Vincent took his own life. The camera looks down as Malcolm lays holding his stomach flat on the bed as Anna attempts to help him, and it just sort of fades to black, and you don't really know what happened after that. As the picture comes back into focus, it tells us it is now the next fall, and we see a shot of a South Philadelphia neighborhood complex. I don't know that you would call these condos or townhomes, or I don't think you would call them apartments because I don't think they're that. Malcolm sits outside on a bench and looks through his files, and the name Cole Sear is at the top of the page. One of the doors to the homes opens, and he sees Cole come outside and put on a pair of glasses and quickly walk away. Of course, Cole is played by Haley Joel Osment. Malcolm begins to follow him as Cole is basically running, but it's not clear why, and he heads into a nearby church. Malcolm walks inside and finds Cole, who is playing with figurines, and apologizes because they were supposed to have an appointment, and I guess Malcolm missed it. Not really clear what happened there. Malcolm looks around and remarks that in the olden days, people used to seek refuge in churches. Cole finally breaks his silence to Malcolm to ask him what those people would have been hiding from, and Malcolm says mostly people who wanted to put them in jail or hurt them. Malcolm points out that Cole's glasses don't even have any lenses in them, and Cole says they were his dad's glasses, but the lenses hurt his eyes when he wears them, so he doesn't wear them with lenses anymore. Malcolm doesn't really address the whole dad thing because I'm sure that's not relevant at all to why this kid's a total weirdo, and maybe it could be just unpacked later. He asks him what he was saying to his toy soldiers when he walked in, and Cole explains he was speaking to them in Latin, but he says only one of the soldiers actually speaks Latin. Cole asks Malcolm if he's a good doctor, and Malcolm says he used to be and mentions the award he won from the mayor, which is a very weird way to answer that question. I get it, like he's trying to be honest, but also if I'm about to do some doctoring, I don't want to make it that unclear whether or not I'm actually a good doctor. I would say maybe the way he could have put it is, I like to think so. Suddenly, Cole just gets up and walks away and asks Malcolm if he'll see him again, and Malcolm just says, if that's okay with you. Malcolm arrives home that night to Anna laying quietly in bed, and no words are exchanged as he sits next to her quietly, and it just seems like she's mad at him and there's a lot of tension and they just don't talk to each other. Malcolm looks through his files and jots down the note, "Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord," which I believe is what Cole said in Latin in the church. After Malcolm makes the note about the Latin translation, it transitions to Lynn, Cole's mom, who is pulling a shirt out of the dryer and putting it on, as I guess she's getting ready for work and is hurrying. She's played by Toni Collette. One odd little tidbit is as she walks into the kitchen and she's buttoning her shirt, she frustratedly calls out to Cole and she notices multiple drawers and cabinet doors are open for some reason, so she closes them thinking Cole just left them open or something. She notices he has a spot on the clip on tie that he's wearing for his school uniform, and she pulls it off and takes it to the laundry room and grabs a new tie from a basket. But when she returns to the kitchen, she shrieks quite loudly as she sees that somehow, in this very short span of time, the cupboards and drawers are open again, but not just a few like before, all of them are open. She looks down at Cole, who is clearly on edge and has his hands flat on the table, and she nervously asks if he was looking for something, and he says, Pop Tarts? And she finds them and hands them to him. He asks her what she's thinking about, and she says lots of things, but when he asks if it was something bad about him, she insists that it wasn't anything bad about him. And I'm going to be honest, Toni Collette looks phenomenal in this movie, by the way, and I mean that in both a traditional and kind sort of way, but also very much in a shallow sort of way. Also, I had no idea at all that she is Australian because I'm quite sure I've never heard her normal speaking voice from what I can recall. If she actually has an Australian accent, I don't know if maybe she was born in Australia but didn't live there long enough to develop an accent, or if she just always disguises her voice in every movie. No idea. As Cole runs off to go to school, she looks down at the table and sees fogged up outlines of his handprints, but doesn't know what to make of that. She watches Cole leave with a school friend from a window, and almost immediately it's revealed that Cole had to pay the kid to pose as his friend, I guess to put his mom's mind at ease. The kid's name is Tommy, and spoilers, he's a real piece of shit. Cole gets home from school that day and walks in the door to see Malcolm waiting for him in the living room. As his mother greets him at the door, she crouches down and tells him that he can tell her about anything he's going through, and he just nods knowingly. She tells an unserious story as a joke to Cole about how she won the lottery in the morning and quit her jobs, then went to the park and had a picnic and swam in the fountain. Malcolm sits in silence, smirking in the chair, listening to her, knowing that she's kidding with Cole, and in no way is it depressing to think about that. She asks Cole what he did, and he shares the fantasy version of his day by saying he was picked first for kickball at recess, and he kicked a grand slam to win the game, and everyone picked him up on their shoulders and carried him around cheering. After she walks away, Malcolm asks Cole if he wants to sit, and Cole shakes his head. Then he determines Cole really isn't in a talking mood today. Malcolm suggests they play a game where if he says something that is true about Cole, then Cole has to take a step toward the chair to sit with Malcolm, and if he's wrong, Cole gets to take a step back toward the door. Malcolm says if Cole reaches the chair, he sits, and if he reaches the door, he can leave. Cole agrees to play, and Malcolm says that when Cole's parents got divorced, his mom went to see a psychiatrist and it didn't help, so Cole thinks Malcolm really can't help him. We learn that Lynn told her shrink things that she couldn't tell anyone else, and that Cole has a secret to tell Malcolm. Malcolm says Cole's watch was a gift from his dad before he left, but Cole steps back and says his dad forgot the watch in a drawer and it doesn't actually work. Then Malcolm says Cole is quiet in school, but he's a good student and has never been in big trouble. Cole steps back and tells a story about his teacher telling the class to draw a picture of whatever they want, and Cole drew a man who was hurt in the neck with a screwdriver, and it really upset everyone. And I'm not really sure why it couldn't just be stabbed in the neck instead of hurt in the neck, but maybe it's like a rating thing. I don't know what the standards are there. Malcolm also asks if Cole saw that kind of thing on TV, and Cole steps back again. Cole explains that his mom had to come into the school and talk with the school about it, and it made her cry, and now he doesn't draw things like that anymore. Malcolm asks what he draws, and he says he just draws pictures of nice things like rainbows, so he doesn't get into any trouble for it. Cole asks Malcolm if he knows what Cole is thinking right now, and Malcolm says he doesn't know. So Cole says he's thinking Malcolm is nice, but that he really can't help him out. Malcolm goes to an Italian restaurant to meet Anna for dinner, and he apologizes when he gets there for going to the wrong restaurant, even though it's supposedly the one he proposed to her at, and he should have remembered which one it was, but she gives him the silent treatment, and it's a really awkward dinner. He begins openly talking to her about Cole and Cole's issues, referring to Cole by name, and he theorizes that he might have been abused or something, but he's not really sure by who. He's just seen what looks to be defensive cuts on Cole, but he doesn't believe it's from his mother. And I'm like, damn, I wonder if this award winning psychiatrist knows about fucking HIPAA at all. But I know, it's a fucking movie. This is just what I do, guys. This is what we're doing here. So don't fucking give me too much shit about it. But he theorizes that it could be like a neighbor or a kid from school, but he also says he could be completely wrong about the whole thing, and he might just have a variety of wounds from being a kid or climbing trees and stuff like that. Or maybe he's just in a fight club or something similar to that. Check comes to the table, and when the waiter drops it off, Malcolm goes for it, but Anna snatches it off the table too quickly and just signs it. Malcolm apologizes again to her and says he believes he is being given a second chance as a psychiatrist and he doesn't want to miss the opportunity. But Anna just won't even make eye contact with him and says happy anniversary under her breath and just walks away from the table to leave the restaurant. It cuts to a different day with Malcolm and Cole walking together on Cole's route to school, and he explains that he walks this route with a kid named Tommy, but that Tommy is not his friend and that Tommy actually hates him. Malcolm asks him if he hates Tommy, and he says no. And when Malcolm asks him if he ever talks to his mom about how things are with him and Tommy, he says no to that too. He says he doesn't talk to his mom about things like that because he doesn't want her to see him the way everyone else sees him and know what he goes through every day. Malcolm asks him how everyone else sees him, and Cole says that he is seen as a bit of a freak, which is what he is in his mind. And Malcolm stops him and tells him that he is not a freak and he doesn't have to go through life believing that because that's bullshit. Back at the Sear house, Lynn has her headphones in, and I'm shocked that if she's home alone, she doesn't just listen to the music on speakers to save her batteries because she's using these like goofy in ear style wraparound headphones, and it's like she has to have a Discman or a Walkman or something. I don't know, but it's like, why would you, if you're home alone, not just utilize the easier way to listen to music? But she's collecting laundry in a basket and notices a picture of Cole that she has hung on the wall. Cole looks very sad in the picture and is looking down, and she notices some kind of strange white streak on the picture that she never really noticed before, I guess. But when she tries to rub it off the picture, it won't go away, and she's not really sure what it is, but it appears to be in the picture itself, like maybe just a distortion or something. She can't really tell. As she looks at all the various pictures of Cole, he always looks very somber no matter what. He's not really smiling in any of them. It's kind of weird. Then it cuts back to Cole and Malcolm is establishing that Cole's dad lives in Pittsburgh with a woman who is a toll booth operator. Cole mentions to Malcolm that he has asked a lot of questions about his dad throughout the course of their visit, and he asks Malcolm why that is. Malcolm explains how people sometimes do things to draw attention to it for other people to see. Malcolm asks him if he knows what free association writing is, and Cole says no. So Malcolm explains that it's when someone just starts writing and keeps writing and doesn't really think about what they're writing about and just basically keeps their pen moving to see what they write. As Malcolm is explaining this, we see Lynn picking up around Cole's room and we see his artwork on the wall and his blanket fort. And as you hear Malcolm asks him if he's ever done the free association writing, we see Lynn's focus shift to some very unpleasant things that Cole appears to have written on the page on his desk. As Malcolm gets up to leave and puts on his coat, he asks Cole to think about what he wants to get out of their little visits. And Cole asks him if he can make it something he doesn't want, and he says he doesn't want to be afraid anymore. And Malcolm sort of ponders on that whole idea as he leaves. But at Malcolm's house, a knock is heard at the door, and he keeps calling out to Anna, asking if she's going to get the door, but she doesn't answer him any of the times that he asks. But he finally hears her walk to the door and answer it, and it's a man that Anna knows that she works with named Sean. Sean invites Anna to go with her to Amish country to help him with navigating the whole experience, and Malcolm is just listening to this whole interaction from another room. Anna politely turns down Sean by saying that she doesn't know if she can deal with the Amish, but Malcolm assumes it's just her letting Sean down easy, but naturally he doesn't love that Sean just came to their house and did that. Sean mentions to her that he's noticed that she seems a little down lately and that he wanted to invite her because he thought maybe she'd like to get out and do some things and get her mind off of things, but she turns him down anyway. Sean even asks her if she wants to have him stop by to show her what he got after he goes to Amish country, and she says no to that too. Malcolm watches the man leave, and the man is just very frustrated, and Malcolm is eager to see him go and call him Dick Cheese under his breath. It cuts to Cole's school classroom where the teacher is explaining to them that Philadelphia was actually the capital of the United States from 1790 to 1800. He asks the students if any of them know what their school building was used for before it became a school, and Cole raises his hand. The teacher seems surprised and eager to hear from Cole, as I get the sense that this is not a regular thing where Cole raises his hand to actually talk. And Cole explains that they used to hang people there, but the teacher tells him that's incorrect and wants to know who told him that. But Cole decides to keep being a fucking weirdo, even though you have to read the room in these scenarios, bud. Like, you don't just keep going if the vibe is off and no one's actually seemingly wanting you to keep going. And he explains how people would be brought in there to be hanged and their families would be there with them crying. The teacher explains that the building used to be a courthouse and that they would make laws there and that they would have trials and various other things that went on in the building. And Cole explains that the people that did that stuff were the same ones who did the hanging of people, which actually makes total sense to me. The teacher continues to try and divert Cole from this course of conversation, but Cole is not getting the hint, and all of the kids in the classroom are turning around to look at him, and he's in the back of the classroom. So it's not just like a couple of people are looking at him. An entire classroom has turned around to look at this fucking weirdo carrying on about people getting hanged, and it's just a little bizarre. Suddenly, the mood shifts to an even more unpleasant one, and Cole tells the teacher to stop looking at him like that, even though the teacher isn't really looking at him any particular sort of way. Cole just tells the teacher that you shouldn't look at people like that because it makes them feel bad, and the teacher says he doesn't know what he means because he's only looking at him normally and not in any sort of way. Then Cole just starts to bring up that the teacher used to talk funny and that he was a stuttering Stanley. Almost immediately, the teacher gives a reaction that shows him there is truth to this statement as he stammers and Cole gets more out of control. Cole just begins chanting, stuttering Stanley to the teacher, until the teacher shuts him down by calling him a freak and like walking right up to his desk. After the incident in the classroom, Malcolm comes to see Cole in the school library, and Malcolm tries to do this little magic trick to cheer him up, but Cole sees through it and doesn't want any part of it. And honestly, even though it's supposed to be supposedly performed as a joke, this magic trick, it's an absolutely horrendous bit of magic. Malcolm is back home later and is watching home videos from when him and Anna got married, and one of Anna's friends is jokingly putting Malcolm on notice about marrying Anna, and Malcolm is watching the video very happily. Malcolm walks over to the bathroom and sees Anna inside the stall showering, and he looks over to the medicine cabinet and notices a comically large bottle of Zoloft, and curiously, there are no other items in the medicine cabinet like it. It's just like maybe like a few things, but there is just like a single shelf with no other medication, just this massive bottle of Zoloft. Malcolm goes downstairs and tries the door to the cabinet under the stairs, but it's locked and he can't seem to get it open. It cuts to Cole at a kid's birthday party and he's trying to reenact the magic trick that Malcolm did for him. But this kid that he's doing the trick for is not having even a little bit of it and even gets pissy enough about the whole thing to ask for his penny back because that's what the whole trick is it's like he's got a penny and he's acting like he's moving it from hand to hand and putting it in different locations, and it's just not really that good. You can hear Lynn talking to another mom in the background, and she's talking about the last birthday that Cole had, which was at Chuck E. Cheese, and he hid in one of those plastic tubes, like in the little play place areas. But it's very confusing because the mom she's talking to, for some reason, acts like she hasn't heard of Chuck E. Cheese. And honestly, if you're a parent of kids this age, especially in the 90s, there is no way you have not heard of Charles Entertainment Cheese. He's kid's birthday royalty. Like, he's an icon in this world. Cole's focus shifts to a circular staircase to the upstairs in this house where he sees a red balloon floating up to the ceiling. I want to be clear, I differentiate this from a spiral staircase because it's not as tight around as a spiral staircase would be. I've heard that spiral staircases were invented so horses couldn't walk up them because a horse can walk up a normal set of stairs, but it can't walk down a normal set of stairs, which would be a problem because then you've just got a bunch of horses upstairs with no way to get them downstairs. Cole foolishly decides it'd be a good idea to go ahead and ascend the staircase in this stranger's home, and that is a cardinal sin in party attendance that should be taught at a very early age, which is that you never ever leave the area of the house where the party is being held and is actually designated to. It's not cool. You don't just wander around somebody else's house. They don't want you in those areas. As Cole walks up the stairs slowly and quietly, he can hear voices coming from behind a door at the top of the stairs, and they're saying that they can hear someone coming. It's like these voices are talking, and it's like they're aware that Cole is coming. But I guess that's not quite enough for little Cole to realize that he shouldn't continue on this path. Very quickly, the voice gets louder and more demanding and seems to be asking Cole to open the door to release them, and Cole just kind of stands there listening to it, paralyzed in shock. And it cuts down to two other kids who are attending the party, one of which is the birthday boy. The one who is not the birthday boy is Tommy, and he looks up and notices that Cole is on the staircase and points it out to the birthday boy. The other kid sighs and says that his dad made him invite Cole, and the two of them decide that this would be as good of a time as any to go up the stairs and be complete assholes to Cole. When they make it up there, they tell Cole that they're doing a little makeshift play that is called Locked in a Dungeon, and that Cole will be the one who is locked in the dungeon. So they pick him up and force him into the door that Cole was hearing those creepy voices from behind and lock him inside of it. Cole immediately starts screaming and pounding on the door, wanting to be let out, but the kids just stand there like dipshits and look at the door in silence. But it's obviously freaking Cole the fuck out being inside what I guess is a closet. I don't know. and it's freaking him out probably even more than it would have a lot of other people if they were just getting locked in a scary closet in someone else's house, which is probably a pretty unsettling experience across the board. It cuts to downstairs where the music is very loud, and Lynn looks up and senses that something is wrong. So she runs up the stairs and sees the two kids just staring at the door that Cole is behind. Lynn cries out Cole's name and begins trying to open the door, but she can't seem to do it. It's as if the door is locked, and she asks if the two boys have the key, but they just stand there silently watching her, and Cole is still screaming bloody murder behind the door. Finally, it seems like something happens behind the door, and Cole stops screaming, and it almost seems like the door just comes unlocked from the inside. Lynn tries the door again, and we get the wonkiest slow motion shot of her pulling Cole from the closet and holding him in her arms. But what I mean by wonky is it's like they shot this slow motion shot at way too low of a frame rate, and so it just looks really choppy and like it's low res. I want to be clear, I'm not an expert in videography or things like this, but I have done a lot of video editing, and I am quite positive that if you intend to shoot something that you want to later do in slow motion, you're actually supposed to shoot it at a much higher frame rate. That's why, like, on the iPhone, if you want to do slow mo, there's like a separate setting to shoot in slow mo. Let's say that the typical frame rate is like 30 frames per second. My assumption has always been that you should shoot these shots at least at double the frame rate to prevent that choppy look. Anywho, Lynn takes Cole to the doctor, and wouldn't you know it, the doctor is played by writer and director M. Night Shyamalan, who is, from what I gather, a big Hitchcock fan. Hitchcock appeared in virtually all of his motion pictures that I know of, but Hitchcock did a thing that I really like, which is just he appears on screen and he typically didn't have any lines. And he wasn't really a character in the movie. It was just like he would be an extra in the background, but it would be like a really obvious thing that he was there. If you were looking for him, you would never miss him. The doctor asserts that he does not believe Cole had a seizure and he's doing fine. And I'm not really sure what Lynn told this doctor when she brought Cole there. And I also want to clarify that I've never actually seen someone have a seizure outside of movies or TV shows, but I don't get the vibe that seizures involve a lot of talking or yelling of any kind, and it seems like you probably wouldn't be of sound enough mind while having one to be able to pound on a door, but what do I know? I don't know why anybody would have thought Cole was having a seizure. The doctor mentions that Cole has some cuts and scrapes, and as he says this whole thing, it's revealed that Malcolm is actually sitting there with them, and he has this pretty visceral reaction to the comment about the abuse, as he had noticed those cuts before and had similar concerns about them and didn't really know what they would have come from. Lynn nervously says, "Yeah, those are from sports," and the doctor just stares at her blankly and doesn't say anything to that. And she asks him if he thinks that she hurts her child and is clearly offended by the very notion of this, which naturally you would. But to be fair, that's just the sort of thing an abusive parent would say if they wanted you to believe that they didn't beat their kid. So you kind of just have to go with what you believe in this scenario. The doctor tells her that she is going to have to go talk to the social worker who is going to ask her some basic procedural questions, and Lynn just gets more upset and she yells at him more that she wants to know what happened to her child today, and Malcolm just sits there listening to her yell at this doctor. Then it cuts to Cole laying in a hospital bed, covered in a blanket, and Malcolm is coming to see him. Malcolm asks him if his dad ever told him bedtime stories, and attempts to tell him the world's most boring and pointless bedtime story about some prince who went for a drive. Okay. Cole interrupts as a result of his aggressive boredom and points out that it doesn't seem like Malcolm has really told many bedtime stories before, and he explains that Malcolm really should add some twists to this story to keep it from being boring. My advice, just to piggyback on that feedback from Cole, would be to maybe think of an existing story and tell that one instead of making one up on the fly if it's your very first rodeo, but that's probably me just being really particular and picky. When Malcolm starts to try to tell the story again, Cole stops him and asks him why he seems so sad all the time, which is a pretty fair question because Malcolm does seem pretty down and out about something pretty much all the time since he's met Cole, and honestly, there was no hope for the bedtime story regardless. Malcolm asks him, "You think I'm sad? What makes you think that?" And to be fair, a better response than what Cole gives would have been to say, "Oh, I don't think, I know." But Cole just says that he could see it in Malcolm's eyes, which I guess is sufficient. It doesn't really hammer his point home, but okay. But Malcolm tells Cole that he's not supposed to talk about stuff like that with his patients. Then he proceeds to seemingly talk about that stuff anyway, but phrases it like it's a bedtime story about someone named Malcolm. The gist of the story is that Malcolm has been struggling a lot, knowing that he couldn't help Vincent Gray, and it has been weighing on him for a long time, ever since he found out that he wasn't actually able to help Vincent. He says that ever since then, things have been different, and his wife doesn't really like the guy he is now because of how he has changed, and two of them barely even speak anymore. Malcolm goes on to explain that Cole reminds him a lot of Vincent, and in some strange way, he feels like if he can help Cole with his problems, it would be almost like he's also helping Vincent at the same time. And of course, now we get the most famous line of this entire movie by a lot. Cole tells Malcolm that he wants to tell him his secret now, and Cole says, "I see dead people." And Malcolm asks if he means he sees them in his dreams, but Cole clarifies that he indeed sees them when he's awake. Malcolm asks him if he sees them in graves, like in coffins, and Cole clarifies that no, the dead people are just walking around like they're alive, and it seems like they just don't actually know that they're dead, and they don't seem to see each other, and they only seem to see what they really want to see. But he says that he sees them all the time and that they just seem to be everywhere. And of course, Malcolm seems a little put off by the notion of this, but he promises not to tell anyone Cole's secret. After this conversation later on, Malcolm is recording details about the case into his tape recorder, and he asserts that Cole is suffering from hallucinations and possibly has schizophrenia, and that the whole thing is much worse than he thought it was originally, and hospitalization may be required. Lynn takes Cole home from the hospital and lays him in bed, and she notices holes in his clothes and sees scars and wounds on his skin, and she doesn't really know where they came from. And we see her call the parents of some of the other kids that Cole goes to school with and tells them to have their kids keep their hands off her son very angrily. Cole wakes up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and it shows the thermostat's thermometer temperature drop rapidly, which is part of this. I don't remember if I specifically spell this out, but Cole just mentions that it tends to get very cold in the area where he is when he's about to see these dead people for some reason. As we see Cole going to the bathroom from behind him, viewing from outside the bathroom door, it seems like a person walks by the door down the hallway, and there's a very loud music cue to make it even easier to notice that this is happening. He walks in the kitchen, and it looks like his mom is getting in the cupboards. When he calls out to her, it turns out to be a woman with bruises on her face and cuts on her wrists, who tells him dinner is not ready very angrily. Cole runs to his room as the woman angrily chases after him while yelling, and he hides in his blanket fort. And I don't really understand like the science of this. They don't really define these things very well because it's not clear if something about Cole's focus shifts, and that's why all of a sudden these dead people aren't able to like keep chasing after him. Like this woman chases after him from the kitchen, and she very easily should have caught him once he got to his fort and started hiding, but for some reason something made it so that didn't happen, and I don't really understand why that is, but it's whatever. Probably not that big of a deal. It cuts to Cole's school play, And afterwards, he and Malcolm are walking and talking about the play and how Tommy was in a cough syrup commercial and Cole stops walking all of a sudden. And Cole looks over and sees 3 dead people hanging from the ceiling with ropes around their necks, dressed in colonial garb, which is a reference to what Cole had been talking about with his teacher about people being hanged in their school when it was a courthouse previously. Of course, Malcolm can't see these people hanging, and Cole explains what it's like when he sees them, like how it feels internally for him and how he gets goosebumps because he says it does get very cold, as I mentioned. Malcolm asks Cole if he's sure people are there because he can't see them, and Cole just asks him to make them leave, and Malcolm says that he's working on it. That's all he really has for him. We finally get a payoff on Tommy's commercial as we see it on TV before dinner at the Sear House, just before Lynn walks in. They sit down to the dinner table, and Lynn tells Cole to take his giant gloves off and keep them off the table. I don't know what the story is on these gloves either. I don't know that they explain it very well. Maybe it's his dad's gloves, or maybe it's because he keeps getting cold all the time that he's been wearing these gloves. Don't know. Maybe it's for people with better sensibilities than me to pick up on. Then she says that she was cleaning in Cole's room and noticed something in one of his drawers, and she asks Cole if he wants to confess anything, but he clearly legitimately has no fucking idea what she's going on about, and she explains that her bumblebee pendant was in his drawer, and she asked him why he keeps taking it. She explains that the bumblebee pendant belonged to her mother, and that he knows she would be very sad if it got broken because she misses his grandmother very much. Lynn gets frustrated by the fact that Cole won't fess up at all to this crime and is more willing to believe something completely outlandish about how it moved, like that somebody just came into their house and moved it without explanation, and she just dismisses him from the table in anger. There is a particularly spooky moment as Cole is going to his room where a strange kid says to him, "Come on, I'll show you where my dad keeps his gun." And when the kid turns around, you can see what is supposed to be a bloody gunshot wound on the back of his head as the kid just disappears into Cole's room and out of sight. He goes to find his mom and he asks her if she's very mad at him, and she says she's not mad, and he asks if he can sleep in her bed. She hugs him and knows something is wrong, but she's frustrated that he won't just tell her in any way. She just knows that he's got a lot going on, and she has zero idea what that is. It cuts to some people looking at engagement rings, and the saleswoman helping them is Anna, and she makes a pretty weird comment to them about how when people die, she thinks that sometimes they imprint themselves on important things that belong to them. She's moving furniture at this store where she works with Sean, the guy who came to see her and invite her to Amish country that she turned down. She gives him a book as a gift, and the two of them hug a couple times, and it looks like they're about to kiss, and then all of a sudden they hear a loud banging noise from downstairs. Then they go down there to see whoever the fuck it is, and they can't find the person who caused the noise, but it looks like whoever it was, they broke the window near the front door of the shop. But it's made clear to the audience that Malcolm was the one who caused the damage as we see him walking away in anger. Malcolm tries talking to Cole about his own problems, and Malcolm says he can't keep Cole as a patient because he's just not focusing on his own life as much as he should. Cole asks Malcolm if he believes him about his secret, but Malcolm says he doesn't really know how to answer that question, which sounds like a pretty firm no. And Cole asks him how he can treat him if he doesn't believe him. It cuts to Malcolm at home, listening to tape recordings of his sessions with Vincent Gray, and it reveals some striking similarities between Vincent and Cole. Malcolm gets hung up on the fact that he made a comment during one of their sessions about it getting cold. He listens further, and there was a moment where he left the recording going in the room when he stepped out and left Vincent in there for a bit. He can hear something odd while he's not in the room during the recording, and it's like he has to turn up the volume, and he realizes it's another person's voice talking to Vincent, but it's in Spanish, and they're saying that they don't want to die. He realizes the two cases are very similar, and he goes to talk to Cole. The two of them realize that the dead people likely just want help, but they can't know for sure unless Cole tries to see if he can help them. But Cole is worried that these dead folks just want to hurt him, and this could really backfire on Cole, obviously, and he's the one that has to take all the risk here. That night, Cole wakes up to his mom having a nightmare while he is in his fort. He goes back to his fort and can suddenly see his breath in the air, and he starts to panic and basically closes himself inside the fort as best he can. The clothespins that are holding the blankets together on the fort start to break open, and he sees this dead girl, and she's got this stuff dribbling out of her mouth. And hey, it's a young Misha Barton. How exciting. He runs away from her initially and realizes after he gets away that he has to face her and ask her if she wants help. He goes back and she's still there with the blanket on her head, and he apprehensively pulls it off her, and she no longer has stuff in her mouth, and she says that she feels better now. Cole asks her if she needs help, and it cuts to Cole and Malcolm riding a bus out to the girl's funeral. Obviously, everyone there is very distraught. It's a fucking funeral. And we hear some exposition from the grieving mother, who says that she went through something similar with her father, who had cancer or something like that. And she explains that her deceased daughter had been bedridden for about 2 years, and 6 different doctors had attempted to treat her with no success. Malcolm and Cole ascend the stairs to find the girl's bedroom. As Cole looks around the room, he passes by her bed, and suddenly the deceased girl reaches out and grabs his leg with her arm. And it's like, damn, girl, maybe like not try and be so spooky. I mean, you know he's trying to help you. Why are you fucking grabbing his leg out of nowhere? Cole cries out and falls on the floor and looks over and sees her hiding out under the bed, and she's pushing a small wooden box over to him. He takes the box downstairs with him and is looking around at all the different guests, and he finds the girl's father and gives him the box. The dad opens the box to find a single VHS tape, just like from olden times. We see him put it into a VCR, and let me just clarify to these younger generations, we never called anything VHS players when VHS was like the common home media format for movies and things like that. They were always called VCRs, which stands for video cassette recorder. I understand that it makes more sense to younger people because more common things from their generations were called DVD players, and we call Blu-ray players what we call them. There's also CD players and so on and so forth. But the actual reason VCRs are known as VCRs is because they originally became popular because they were primarily used for recording programming on your TV so you could watch it later when nothing was available on demand. So, like, basically, if you knew you were going to be out or you were going to be asleep and you wanted to be able to watch a show, you would set your VCR to record the program and you would watch it at your leisure the next time you had a chance. They became somewhat popular, VCRs, in the 70s and more so in the 80s, but for quite a long while, I want to say almost until the early 90s, mass produced home video versions of movies on VHS were prohibitively expensive to buy in most cases. Anywho, the dad pops the tape into the VCR and begins watching it, and it's footage from the girl's bedroom when she was alive, and she's playing with puppets. When she hears her mom coming, she puts the puppets away and leaves the camera recording, and it's like looking at her bed. The mother walks in with food and doesn't know that she's being recorded, and we can see the mother with her food on a tray front and center of the recording, and the mother pulls out a bottle and can be seen deliberately poisoning her daughter's food with whatever's in the bottle. I can't remember what the bottle actually said. The father is watching in shock as he sees what his wife is doing in the video and cannot believe she clearly murdered their daughter as he watches her stir in the poison and brings the food over to the daughter and tells her not to complain, about it tasting funny. It cuts to him confronting the wife in front of the guests and tells her that she was keeping their daughter sick. Cole finds the girl's sister on a swing outside and gives her a doll that the deceased girl wanted her sister to have. Later, Cole is sitting backstage at a play and he's talking to a woman whose face is very badly burned. And the teacher from earlier comes up and asks Cole who he was talking to, but Cole just says he was practicing his lines, which is a great save. As Cole thanks him for letting him have the part in the play, the teacher tells him there was once a fire in that area of the theater, and Cole's just like, yeah, bruh, I fucking know better than you even fucking know. Cole plays the lead in The Sword and the Stone as Malcolm watches happily from the audience, but Lynn is not there. Afterwards, Cole and Malcolm are talking, and Cole suggests that Malcolm should talk to his wife by waiting until she falls asleep, and then she'll have to listen no matter what. Two of them part ways after having decided that their appointments are over and they don't need to continue happening. Then it cuts to what is, in my opinion, the best scene of this entire movie. And I'm going to tell you, I legitimately got emotional watching this scene. I don't even remember it having that profound of an effect on me when I watched it previously. But Cole and Lynn are sitting in traffic waiting at a standstill for some accident, but they can't really see what's going on from where they are. And Lynn just keeps saying that she hopes that nobody got hurt in the accident. Lynn mentions that Cole is being awfully quiet, and she assumes that he's mad at her because she couldn't go to his play, and she explains that she had to work and that her jobs are very important to the both of them and their livelihoods. Cole turns to her and tells her that he is ready to communicate with her now and tell his secrets to her. She asks him what the secrets are, and he says, "You know the accident up there?" And she's like, "Yeah." Cole explains that in the accident that they're waiting for, that somebody did get hurt and the woman died. Lynn asks him how he knows that because they can't see from where they're at, and he says that the woman who was killed is standing outside of his window by the car, and the camera cuts and shows the woman severely injured in a bicycle helmet. Lynn tells Cole that he's scaring her, and he says that sometimes the dead people scare him too. He explains to her that he sees ghosts and that they talk to him, and sometimes they ask him to do things for them. Obviously, Lynn is pretty freaked out by this notion and keeps asking him about it as he continues explaining it to her, and clearly she's pretty apprehensive about believing him. He tells her that Grandma says hi, and that she's sorry for taking the bumblebee pendant that they talked about earlier, and that his grandma likes it a lot, and that's why she keeps taking it. Lynn tells Cole that what he's saying is very wrong to say because his grandmother is gone and he knows that, but Cole powers through all of Lynn's objections and says that his grandma comes to visit him sometimes, and you can see that Lynn is getting very upset as he's talking and she's trying to tell him to stop. And then he says that his grandma wanted him to tell his mom that she saw her dance. He explains that his mother and his grandma got into a fight when she was much younger, and that Lynn had always assumed that her mother missed her dance recital, but the mother told him that she went anyway. She hid in the back so that Lynn wouldn't see her, and the grandma said that Lynn was like an angel up on stage. Cole explains that his grandma mentioned that Lynn went to her grave, and Lynn asked her a question, and the grandma said the answer to Lynn's question was every day. Cole asks Lynn what question she asked her mother, and she says she asked if she made her mother proud. Malcolm returns home and hears Anna watching videos from their wedding and sees that she's like asleep. He says her name and she just says, "I miss you." And he says that he misses her too. She says, "Why, Malcolm?" And he asks her what she means. And she says, "Why did you leave me?" And he says, "I didn't leave you." But she adjusts herself and drops something, and you hear it hit the floor and it rolls toward him, and it's a wedding band. He looks over to her hand and sees both of her wedding rings, like, women do, like the wedding band with the engagement ring on top, and they're both on her finger. But he looks down and sees the band is actually missing from his own finger, and suddenly voiceover of Cole originally explaining how the dead people are comes in from earlier as Malcolm stands up stunned. It flashes back to all the times when Malcolm was around Cole or anyone else, and it's clear that no one else was interacting with Malcolm or acknowledging Malcolm but Cole. As Cole talks about how the dead people only saw what they wanted to, Malcolm realizes he was never at the restaurant with Anna, and that the door under the stairs that he couldn't get into was actually blocked with a table, but his mind wouldn't let him see it. It cuts back to the night that Malcolm was shot and shows that he actually died that night from, the very beginning of this movie, and that he was just another one of the dead people visiting Cole for help. Malcolm reaches down and feels the gunshot wound in the front, and he looks at his back and sees a massive blood stain around an exit wound from the bullet. He calmly tells Anna he thinks he can go now. He just needed to help someone, and he thinks he did. But he tells her also that she was never second, and he always loved her. And then she says, "Good night, Malcolm," and we roll credits. Honestly, fucking crazy. Okay, so trivia for this movie. Reportedly, Haley Joel Osment got the role of Cole Sear for one of three reasons. First, he was best for it. Okay. Second, he was the only boy at auditions who wore a tie. Third, director M. Night Shyamalan was surprised when he asked Osment if he read his part, and Osment replied, "I read it 3 times last night," and Shyamalan was like so impressed, saying, "Wow, you read your part 3 times?" To which Osment replied, "No, I read the script 3 times." Toni Collette has said that she was so moved by the emotional resonance of the story while filming that she didn't even realize it was a horror film until after its release. While in New York City auditioning for Bringing Out the Dead from 1999, Toni Collette also auditioned for this film as an afterthought. She said the scene in the car toward the end of the film, which was the audition scene, was the scene that really drew her to the film. David Vogel, then president of production at Walt Disney Studios, read M. Night Shyamalan's spec script and instantly loved it. Without obtaining corporate approval, Vogel bought the rights to the script despite the high price of $3 million dollars and the stipulation that Shyamalan could direct the film. Vogel was ultimately fired for doing this, despite the film being a massive success, because you don't fuck with Disney's money, okay? Let's just be clear on that. According to director M. Night Shyamalan, Donnie Wahlberg lost 43 pounds for the role of Vincent Gray, and it honestly, I barely remember what Donnie Wahlberg looks like normally, but it did not look anything like him at all to me. The movie was rented by 80 million people in 2000, making it the year's top-rated VHS and DVD title. Haley Joel Osment revealed he and Bruce Willis kept in touch over the years, adding, "I heard from Bruce a lot after it came out in those subsequent years." Osment told Entertainment Weekly he'd leave voicemails at the house from time to time, just checking in. He would just call out of the blue, so sometimes it was in the lead up before travel. We went to Japan together twice, if I remember correctly, to open Sixth Sense in different cities. So he would call ahead of that, and then sometimes I would just come home from school and the answering machine would be blinking and it'd be him going like, "Hey, Haley Joel," just saying hi. And I'm wondering, like, does Haley Joel Osment go as Haley Joel or does he just go as Haley? Was Bruce Willis kidding with him? I don't know. Who fucking knows? This movie surpassed Jaws from 1975 as the highest grossing horror film of all time, and itself held the record for nearly 20 years until it was surpassed by the movie It from 2017. Reportedly, director M. Night Shyamalan disliked his part in this movie so much that he cut most of it from the final print. And here is that payoff that you were just dying to get for the end of this episode. According to Michael Cera, this was the first film that he ever auditioned for. He read for the part of Cole, and the scene that he did was the magic trick scene, but he later admitted that he did it too cheerfully. He had not read the entire script, so he didn't know that Cole was supposed to be an introverted and quiet boy. Tough luck there, Michael, but it was your first audition, so I'm willing to let it slide. The movie's line, "I see dead people," was voted as the number 44 movie quote by the American Film Institute out of 100 different quotes from different movies. Alright, on to info and ratings. Opening weekend, 26.7 million. Worldwide gross, 672.8 million. IMDb rating 8.2, Letterboxd rating 4.1, Rotten Tomato Critics score 86%, Rotten Tomato audience score 90%. Personal rating 5 out of 5 stars. Praise for this movie. It honestly is perfectly paced and really doesn't drag too much at all. The acting is honestly pretty stupendous in my opinion. Final act of this movie is one of the more satisfying conclusions that I can recall for the two biggest characters in it. Criticism, this movie has almost no rewatch value other than to see how well it holds up after you know the twist, and then it kind of irritates you a bit, honestly. Alright, everyone, thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day. Bye now.
What you hoped you would see. He's half blind, with hats tight, with all the dates release. For Footloose, The Dark Knight, a Kurt Russell brain freeze, Rear Windows and Gaslights. I'm Billy and you're Meg. Sharon Stone, the legs spread. The park starts with the eggs. It won't stop till you're dead. I'm here to welcome you to Brandon around the reviews. No method when I choose. It's Brandon around the reviews. You're looking for a man with no plans or programs. If you're looking for a man with no plans or programs, and he always leaves a chance to hold hands for romance, or you're looking for the loop with an old man or cold hands, it's a creature of the night who heads for his spotlight. I'm here for my fleet, oh, for his diet. I'm here to welcome you to Brandon around the reviews. No method when I choose. It's Brandon around.